Some prominent members of the Democratic Party appear to have made the calculation that Donald Trump being found guilty of 34 felonies is going to help Biden, maybe clinch the election for him. But is that actually true? Well, we're gonna dive into the most recent evidence. I know everybody is sifting through whatever they can to try to figure out what effect this will have on the election. And here's what we know from a recent Emerson College poll. So 27% of voters say that they're more likely to back Donald Trump after he was found guilty in his hush money trial in Manhattan. Now, about a third say it makes him less likely. So 27%, the ones who are more likely, is the minority there. 40% say the conviction does not influence their decision at all. And I just want to stop there for a second. We have a whole lot more numbers we're gonna jump into, and there's compelling stuff. There's some good news for Donald Trump. There's some good news for Joe Biden. But I've been really dwelling on this more likely to vote for Trump as a result of him being found guilty thing. And I am questioning whether it means anything. Is there anyone who was not going to vote for Trump, but is now gonna vote for Trump because he was found guilty of crimes that he definitely did? Or is this just people who literally cannot be found in the wild without a red hat on, saying whatever they think is best for Trump? Waz, I wanna start with you. What do you make of the more likelies?
Pausing here to deliver some honest truth as we do in our news coverage as well. TYT is facing challenges, guys, as the entire industry is. You know who could make the difference? You. If you hit the join button below, it's gonna make all the difference and keep us in business. We appreciate you, thank you.
If you're more, like, meaning you love Trump more now than you did before, I have a feeling that you think that you can run a child sex ring out of a pizza store. Like, that's just generally my feeling about somebody who comes out of this more enthusiastic about their vote for Donald Trump. To me, you're just so far down the road, brother. There's just no coming back. So I can't, and we knew these people existed already too. And so I can't be shocked by that number, John.
Yeah, David, I want to add a little bit to that for you. So what I'm trying to figure out is the Trumpers say he's going to gain support, and we know that he raised a lot of money that could help him gain support. But do you think that not as a result of the money, just as a result of the verdict, this will actually help him in a measurable way?
No, I don't think it'll help at all. I mean, if you look at that number, 27% of all likely voters, that reflects, give or take, about the percentage of MAGA voters that are out there. And in the MAGA movement, among the Republicans who are MAGA, they have long said that Donald Trump deserves even more to be reelected, to be elected, because of what's being put on him, because of the criminal charges. So this was just sort of validation for them. Of course, he's found guilty, and then the MAGA movement say, oh, now I'm more likely. But then look at the 30%. Well, maybe that's reflective of the percentage of Democrats who are out there who are like, yeah, it makes me even less likely to like Donald Trump. The question is, what happens in the middle? What happens with the moderate and independent voters in about half a dozen battleground states? Does this cause Donald Trump does it help him somehow? I don't think so. I mean, everything I've seen is that maybe he loses 2 or 3% or 5% of the moderate and independent voters because of the felony conviction. That's enough for him to start losing states like Wisconsin and Michigan and Pennsylvania.
Well, I'm glad that you bring up the independents, because I want to turn to that now. I largely agree about those other two categories. The Democrats, the Republicans, I think there will be a few percentage points that will move. The independents, I think we should see more movement there. These are people who don't as closely associate with a party, although classifying yourself as an independent doesn't always mean you're as independent as people think. There's a lot of mythology in America about that classification, but 21% say that the conviction makes them more likely. 38% say the news makes them less likely to support the Republican ticket. So there the gap is pretty significant. The less likelies are almost twice as high as the more likelies. I will say that so far in the swing state polling that I've seen over the last day, Trump is still leading in some swing states by 4, 5, 6 points. In some, others are tied. What I also wonder though is a lot of these polls are of all registered voters, which is obviously not the same as likely voters. And I wonder to what extent the effect you'd have from these convictions is not so much changing who a likely voter will vote for, but changing who will be a likely voter. And so when you have a poll that comes out of just registered voters, I wonder if that is really revealing all that much about the final result of that. But here's the independent numbers, starting with you, Waz. What do you make of that? That looks a little bit more damaging to Trump.
If you're a Biden supporter or somebody that's working in his campaign, you should definitely feel encouraged by this independent number, because it feels like that's where the election is going to swing on those voters. But I would also say that this, like, the reason why we don't see some huge bump or decrease, whichever side you're looking at this from, for Donald Trump, is that I don't think voters are stupid. And I think voters look at the charge. Basically, a rich guy paid a sex worker not to put his business on the street. I just don't think this is an issue that would move voters. Now, that situation in Arizona, the situation in Georgia, where this guy was literally trying to cheat, to steal the election, I think that would actually move the needle. If he was convicted and there was compelling evidence, and the phone evidence and stuff like that could be presented to the public, that would be different. But like, I think voters are responding to something that they don't see as a huge issue. Cheating on your wife to most American voters just doesn't mean that much, apparently. Even if it's with a prostitute.
Yeah. Well, a couple of things here. First of all, I mean, the moderate and independent voters, I mean, election experts will tell you that those are the least likely to actually go out and vote. I mean, those are the ones that take the most persuading to actually get them to put aside their apathy and go and make a choice between the two candidates. But here's where it helps President Biden, and that is, even if you have moderate and independent voters who might have been inclined, oh yeah, maybe I'll participate. I'll go pull the. Well, if they say no, I mean, there's no way I could possibly pull the lever for a convicted felon, but I also don't like Joe Biden. He's told I'm going to stay at home. Well, in a way, that still kind of helps Joe Biden, because it's one less Trump voter. And for all of the moderate and independent voters who are just, I'm kind of put off by Donald Trump, I just can't do this. I mean, there's still a significant of moderate and independent voters who will pull the lever for Joe Biden. So again, it's all at the margins. It's all perhaps a very small percentage, but I just can't see, and we've seen this over and over from Fox News and Newsmax, that, oh, Donald Trump has certainly won the election now that he got convicted on the felony charges. No, he hasn't. I think he has lost because of this, with one caveat. I do think that if Donald Trump actually gets sentenced to a significant amount of jail time, it'll be like pouring gasoline on the fire. And I think there could be such revulsion, even among people who are moderates and independents, who say, to Waz's point, he was just trying to cover up an affair. Okay, he cheated on his business records. It was a non-violent crime. Who goes to jail for this sort of thing? If Donald Trump does go to jail, I think that could backfire on the Democrats and could energize a lot of people who are like, this is outrageous.
Okay, well, I think that's interesting. I have a couple more facts, one of which bears on what you just said. So first of all, I'm just gonna throw out, this whole time now we've been trying to track what effect the third party candidates will have, and it seemingly depends on the week. 1 week they hurt Trump, 1 week they hurt Joe Biden. This week they hurt Joe Biden, actually. So the inclusion of RFK Jr. and Jill Stein drops Trump's support by 2% and Biden's by 7%. So that's fun. But when you ask the voters what sentence he should get for the convictions, 40% say that he should serve time in prison, 25% think he should pay a fine, and 15% want him to suffer probation, although obviously he could receive a combination of those. Yeah, I agree that, although I don't know exactly what direction it would go, the convictions I think have broken through to a lot of people who don't necessarily pay a lot of attention to politics. But I think that a jail sentence would break through to more. But again, I don't know exactly what effect that would have. And I definitely agree with you, Waz, that if it were one of the other cases, I think we might see a stronger effect. I mean, we had the 2 civil cases. I think that in a rational world, the fact that he was found guilty of sexually abusing Eugene Carroll and owed nearly $100 million should be the end of this. Super weird that most days go by and nobody even mentions it, let alone the $500 million he owes from the business fraud. But okay, that's America. We have these other trials. We have January 6th, so we have the classified documents, and we have Georgia, and potentially more coming. But the issue is that those 3, which I think most people agree are more significant, have been effectively stymied by the conflicted judges that we have in the Supreme Court, or Eileen Cannon, or the appeals court in Georgia. Everybody focuses on how Judge Juan Merchan is being like really mean to Trump, but those other 3 cases have been effectively shut down, and most people don't think that we're gonna have a resolution on them, which is really too bad, I think. Any final thoughts about all this? Starting with you, David.
I think we got to give the voters some slack too, where they just might have Trump prosecution fatigue. There was impeachment 1, impeachment 2, the Mueller report, this investigation, that thing, blah blah blah, and nothing ever turned up anything. Not that they didn't turn up anything. They didn't turn up anything in terms of consequences. In terms of here's the thing Donald Trump did that was horrible. Here's how we're coming down on him. If you're just a low information, or I hate low information, but just somebody who's got a life that's such that you're not constantly living and dying with politics. When you turn on your news, it's like, oh, Trump's being looked into that. And then ultimately, all you ever see is, yeah, nothing, bupkis. I don't blame the voters for not being super dialed in and locked in anymore.
Yeah, and the fatigue is only going to grow if Donald Trump goes to jail, because then, the helicopter shots of him being sent off to prison, I mean, it'll be over the top. I think, look, Democrats have what they need. Donald Trump is a convicted felon. The Democrats can drop billions of dollars in advertisements and end every ad with Donald Trump convicted felon. Donald Trump actually going to Rikers, going to jail, which would be something different than 90% of the people who are convicted of falsifying business records don't get jail time if they're a first-time offender. And people say, well, what about Michael Cohen and Alan Weisselberg? Well, they were also convicted of perjury, making false statements, tax fraud. So Donald Trump, it's just the falsifying of business records. I think Democrats should take the victory. Donald Trump is a convicted felon. Run the ads on it. It'll move the needle a little bit. Don't risk the needle swinging back the other way with more drama that exhausts people, with the sort of exhaustion if Donald Trump actually goes to prison.
Yeah. I feel comfortable talking about this because obviously none of us on this call have any effect on the outcome of this. But you mentioned there were those extenuating circumstances for Weisselberg and Cohen. Do you think that in the case of Trump, the possible extenuating circumstances of the 10 willful violations of the gag order, as well as his complete lack of remorse, not lack of just lack of remorse. He's literally going out afterward and calling the judge the devil and saying he literally crucified people. Is that extenuating circumstances?
Yeah, I do think that is. I think that's the risk for Donald Trump in all this, is that I think normally he wouldn't get jail time, but because of the contempt, because he continues to flaunt, the conviction, and he didn't even want to meet. He didn't refuse to meet with the probation officer, which he was supposed to do right after he was found guilty. And the probation officer is going to give a report to the court. Well, right now they don't have anything to report except Donald Trump hasn't shown up. So, but I still think that Judge Juan Merchan, while he was going through the contempt findings, those 10 citations, he said, I don't want to put you in jail. You're a former president of the United States. You're a nominee for president of the United States. I don't want to do it. And I still think that Juan Merchan will not do it, no matter how much Donald Trump insults him, no matter how crazy Donald Trump gets.
If I had to put my money on something, that's what I would put it on.
Thanks for watching the Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.